You're watching PowerNation. Today on Carcass, we start tearing into the interior of our Spec Miata Racecar, getting ready to install the new racing seat.
Then we build a custom roll cage to keep us safe when we're out on the track.
Hey guys, welcome to Carcass. Well, as you can see, we got the Miata up here on our wheel stands, and it's time to start transitioning this thing from the daily driver that it is into the Spec Miata race car that we want it to be. And the last time you guys saw this, we had a little bit of fun on the racetrack, and then we ran it down to engine power and got a base horsepower number. We managed to throw a couple little things at it and gain about 5 horse, which could be the difference between winning and losing.
In a class as tight as Spec Miata, that's a huge deal. Now the first thing we're going to do to turn this thing into a race car is mount a racing seat and then build a roll cage around it. And as far as research goes and for how tall we are, we're thinking we're going to have to mount the seat to the floor pan itself and as far back in the car as possible. And we do have a rulebook on hand because some of the interior panels we will need to keep in the car, and we don't want to throw anything away that we'll need. So otherwise, let's just get this thing apart.
Right. These are really light. Not a whole lot to them. Removing the interior is pretty straightforward. We just need to get everything out of the way to make room for our roll cage. All right. Use that, Jimmy. Oh yeah. Thank you. Trying to get down to it. Won't be needing that anymore. Get these disconnected somehow. Get the radio out of the way here. Couple connectors underneath here to do. And there's one up here for the heater vent. I'm just gonna pull that off. Push this clip, pull this back, pull it up there. There's that one. I'll clip these two guys. And we'll go over to the driver's side. We'll get the horn out of here and the airbag too. All right, we can just get rid of this completely. I'll get the cluster out of it. This out of here. All right, get the dash out. We'll keep moving on. Look at that.
There it goes.
And then all we got left is the antenna. Shazam, I'll take it. Cool. That was simple enough.
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
All right, got a couple more things to do on the interior here. We're gonna go ahead and pull the convertible top off. Then we're gonna come down here and drill out these seat risers. But first, we'll start right here with the top. Get inside this thing and take out a couple bolts. Jimmy, you want to give me a hand here? Get this thing out of here somehow. Maybe. If you guys are taller, maybe a good idea to remove these stock seat brackets. What that's going to allow you to do, slide your seat further back and get it sitting a little closer to the ground and make this tiny car a little more comfortable to drive. After center punching our holes, we'll use our Matco tool spot weld cutter. And first, we'll just apply light pressure as we start to cut. And then once we get a hole, we'll bear down on it and get rid of the weld.
Coming up, we mock up and build mounts for our new seat, and then start building the backbone of our new roll cage.
Well, now that we have the interior out of the Spec Miata, we're gonna go ahead and start building the roll cage and mounting up this Kirkey racing seat that we got from Summit Racing. Now, Jimmy and I have already set it in here, so we have a base idea where it's gotta go. So I'm gonna have him build the front part of the mount here, and I'll go ahead and take care of the back, because that just bolts directly to the floor pan. Then once it's installed, we'll go ahead and start bending some tube and build the roll cage.
Well, it looks like about 5 inches.
Using a piece of cardboard, we'll do a quick layout of the design and cut it out. This should work. Jimmy, this is the front bracket for the seats. Can you whip 2 of those out? One's got to be bent one way, one's got to be bent the opposite way.
Yep.
Then I'll mount the back.
Got it.
While Jimmy's making the brackets for the front of the seat, I went ahead and drilled the holes to mount the rear of the seat. Now we're also going to be adding these little spacers. They're going to bring the seat up just a little bit, and it's going to help disperse the load so the bolt doesn't pull right through the floor. All right, now we'll mount the seat.
Here you go.
Perfect.
2 brackets.
Mark these. We'll get the seat installed then. All right, get the seat out of here, drill some holes, reinstall it, be done.
We've got the seat installed in the car now, so I can start working on the cage, and in most cases that starts with the main hoop. So I'm going to take some measurements at the car, cut and bend this tube, and we'll get it in. To make the main hoop, I find it a lot easier to measure from the center of the car out. So what I'm doing with the string here is I tied one side to a bolt that's in the center of the dash, and there's a stud on this side that fixed the convertible top to the car, and this is also in the center. So once I get this string in here, I can take our cheater tube, place it where our main hoop is going to land, and then I can measure from the center out to our bend line, and then I can calculate the total length of tube we're going to use. So I just got to get this on here, and we'll start measuring. All right, so all we're doing right now, Jeremy's gonna help me with this. We're just gonna measure for the center portion of the main hoop. This is obviously way too low for the main hoop, but after we can take a height measurement and then total up for the length of the main hoop. That's about 17.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Then, and from before we took a measurement for the total height of the main hoop from the package tray, so we kind of know where we're gonna land to stay under the top.
Yeah. So on
What do
that
you
mark, you landed about 20 3/4, 21, somewhere.
21,
around there.
yeah. 21 times 2, 17 times 2,
and then
7.5 times 2. for each
Radius.
bend.
So write all that down so you don't forget.
Yeah. 91 inches. On the dot. All right, let's see how we did. Yep, lands dead center in each pad, so that's pretty good. We'll tack it in, and then we can get to the rest of the roll cage.
Don't go away. The assembly of our Spec Miata roll cage takes shape with some added custom touches.
I've got the main hoop in with a couple down braces, and I can start moving forward. The next thing I'm going to do is work on the harness bar and the diagonal brace for the main hoop. And something to note here that's very common with these cars is that the harness bar will actually go out behind the plane of the main hoop to make sure there's enough room to install the harnesses correctly. It's nothing too crazy, but it will take some small adjustments and trimming to make sure the joints are good on both sides. I'm just going to take a basic measurement here to get an idea of how long it will be. And I'll give myself some extra just to make sure. We're looking at about 4 feet, but I'll probably cut it at 5, and that's where we'll start. All right, so we've got the first bend and notch in the harness bar, and so now obviously you can see that it sits way behind the main hoop. So I've got 2 more bends in it, one to bring it back in plane, and then another bend to straighten it out. All right, everything looks parallel. All right, let's see.
I bet it fits perfectly. Where are you at? There-ish?
Yeah, just above the seat belt mount.
Yeah, it seems about right.
All right, let me get my helmet and we'll tack it in.
Okay, I'll hold it.
Okay. Flat foot. All right, installed. Cross brace somewhere there. Eight and 15. 28, 15. All right, now before we actually tack in these diagonal brace pieces, I do have to fully weld this portion of this joint because this tube will cover it. We want to make sure that we get a full weld around every tube. And then once we do that and get these pieces tacked in, we're actually going to take this whole main hoop assembly all the way out, put it on the table, and fully weld all these joints.
It looks pretty.
Yeah, should fit pretty nice.
I hope so. Otherwise you gotta do it all over again.
Yeah.
You want it all the way to the leading edge, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that'll work.
All right, just tack it in.
Yeah, I'll hold it.
All right, we've got the back half of our cage installed, so now we can keep moving forward and work on the front. At a basic level, building roll cages comes down to cutting, notching, and welding. Building roll cages for off-road stuff is pretty subjective, but building roll cages for race cars like this that compete in a specific class, you have to make sure that you follow any rules specified in the rule book. Perfect.
Dude, that cage looks great.
Thanks. Got a couple more things to weld up and then get the harnesses in it. We'll be ready to move on.
Yeah, you go ahead and slam them in. We'll get it off of these blocks here and then over on the hoist and keep rolling.
Yeah. We'll take the next steps, turning our Mazda into a track titan. We've got the cage all wrapped up in the car, and the only thing left to do is paint it along with the rest of the interior, and now we're ready to move on with the rest of the car.
So the idea from here is to follow the spec rule book and turn our stock daily driver into a competitive track car. Now, we already went ahead and bumped up the timing, and we swapped out the exhaust. Then we stripped the interior, added a roll cage and racing seat to make sure we were safe. So now the plan from here is to remove the subframe and trans to upgrade our clutch. With the subframe out, we'll tackle the suspension with a new set of struts and springs, plus throw in a bigger set of sway bars. To slow down in the corners, we'll upgrade the brakes with a bigger set of pads and rotors, and then top them off with a custom set of wheels and track-specific tires. At the end, we'll wrap the whole thing up by taking care of the faded out paint and do an easy color change to give it a fresh look. So the next thing we're gonna tackle is getting out the engine, the transmission, and the subframe. That way it's gonna make our lives a whole lot easier when it comes time to doing the clutch, the suspension, and the brakes. Stripping down the top side of the engine is pretty easy. Just a couple electrical connections, we'll disconnect some hoses and get rid of some fluids. See if I can do this without making a huge mess, but no guarantees.
It's a lot of coolant. Slower is faster in this game. I don't want to have to mop up. Nice. I'll take that. Cool, that'll work. Now we'll go up top. Nice. Ooh, making a mess. We'll have to disconnect the steering as well. Easy. And the heater core hoses. Next are the wheels and tires, followed by the calipers. And since we're going to reuse these, we'll hang these up. All right, guys, so what exactly are we doing? Well, up underneath the Miata here is the subframe, or they also call it a cradle. Now, what that does is it holds the engine, transmission, and the front suspension in the car. And then what they do is they just bolt this whole thing up into the body of the car. So what we're gonna do is take this all down and set it on a set of jack stands with the engine, transmission, and front suspension in place. That's just gonna make it a whole lot easier to work on everything. They're pretty simple to get out, just a series of bolts. So we'll get these bolts out of here, set up some jack stands, get this thing on the ground. Okay, so now we're gonna pull the subframe out, but all we're gonna do is just loosen the bolts a little bit, and then we're gonna set this thing down on the ground on a set of jack stands, then we'll come back, take the bolts out the rest of the way, and pick the car up. All right, Jimmy, you want to watch that side so we don't catch anything? I think we're clear. I don't know if I forgot anything.
Yeah. I don't see anything hanging, so.
That's pretty simple.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's definitely the way to do it. Drop everything clean out.
Pretty easy.
You know, even if you don't have a hoist, you can still do it that way. I mean, it's a little easier for us. We get to pick it up, but
yeah,
you can still take the cradles out from underneath it. And, you know, guys find interesting ways to get the bodies up top of them. So.
Yeah, just like researching what everyone else did, that's how we figured this out.
Right,
you know?
right.
So.
Yeah, that's a simple way to do that.
Yeah. If you like anything you've seen on today's show, be sure to check out more of PowerNation TV.